All right, welcome back to another Tuesday edition of Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I am joined by Team Osceola tonight. We have a full huddle. We've got the sixth man in here tonight and everything, but got senior writer Kurt Weiler with us, managing editor Bob Ferrante, publisher Jerry Cutts, Osceola football analyst Mark Salva, and recruiting writer Nick Carlisle. Welcome, guys.
Well,
How's it going? How's it going?
Nice
Doing
light
good.
show, Nick.
Thanks. So, it's not quite garnet, but it's
Nick
it's close
appealing to our acid droppers in the audience.
enough. It could be worse. I could make it worse if you want.
No, we're good. We'll leave it at that. I think we've gotten risky enough on the background. But yeah, so listen, we've had 2 days to savor FSU's win over Miami. It was a really busy Sunday from a recruiting standpoint, and all rumors point to FSU being really hot on the recruiting trail. We'll have some more on that later in the week, but certainly had LJ McCray on campus. They got a commitment of Jamari Howard before the South Florida corner before the game. So Mike Norvell is winning all over the place. He's probably going to be able to leverage a raise out of the Texas A&M thing. So, I mean, it's Mike Norvell is winning on all fronts this weekend. But, Mark, I'll start with you. You've had a chance to get back home and kind of do a second watch. And what we're going to start with is the Miami win. We've got some time to fill. We don't really go back on Tuesday nights and review games, but since the college football playoffs have come along, we've moved our Sunday show to Tuesday, particularly with what's going on with recruiting at the last several home games. So, Mark, just your feedback on what was an outstanding performance by the FSU defense, a instrumental performance by the maestro of punting, Alex Mastromano, and then Keon and Johnny on offense were basically the offense, and not sure if the game would have turned out the same if they had not gotten back healthy after they set out the Pitt game. Mike Norvell got a great return on his investment in trying to keep those guys healthy and not play them in Pitt, and they came back. But take it away, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, I said in the instant reaction, I was there. Number one, the atmosphere was incredible, about like you'd expect in an FSU Miami game at Doak. But, looking at the game again, man, I tell you what, it shouldn't have been that close. It really shouldn't have been. I mean, the opportunities we had to make plays based on how they were playing us, there were so many opportunities there. And I see what the game plan was on offense. I mean, it was the things they were trying to do. I mean, we were several shoestring tackles away from breaking some big runs. I mean, we were there was a lot of opportunities in the passing game that we didn't quite pull off. I mean, it was really, golly, it could have been a lot worse. And, I predicted a 2-touchdown game, and it was moving that way. I mean, we were up, I guess, 27. What were we? Yeah, 27-13. Yeah, we're 27-13.
Yeah.
And I predicted, 34-14, and it was going that way, except for that one play. And that was just, and they didn't cross the 50 the whole second half, except for the onside kick and that play. And so it really wasn't as close as it looked, but it turned out to be that close. And then when Emory got hurt, I'm thinking, oh no, this would be the most FSU Miami thing ever, that Tyler Van Dyke would come in the game and pull something out, right? I mean, I think everybody probably thought that, but cooler heads prevailed, and Tyler Dyke stayed true to form. And I think that last play, they did a great job of bracketing Restrepo and kind of took away his first read, so he panicked and got out of there. If he would have stuck in there a little bit, he was starting to break a little bit late, but he flushed out of there and all was okay. But I mean, the defense was the story here in the second half, dominating them. I don't know how was that 5 3-and-outs, something like that.
Yeah,
in this, yeah, 5 3-and-outs in the second half, didn't cross the 50. But to me, the missed opportunities on offense were just immense. And then, of course, Keon Coleman being the difference maker, both on his touchdown and on the punt return, but converting those opportunities was big. And of course, the missed opportunity on the field goal in the second quarter, I guess it was. Yeah, the second quarter. Get down there after the Ja'Kai Douglas RPO, getting down there. That to me was a missed opportunity. I don't know. I just, obviously you just want to come out of there with a win, but I just see there was just so much the way they were playing us, man. There were just so many opportunities one-on-one on the outside and with the slot receivers, and I mean they were going to load the box and they were going to blitz and they were going to come, and to me as an offensive guy, I love teams to play me like that, especially if I think I can win on the outside and I have a quarterback with some poise, right? Those are great opportunities to make plays, and we pulled some off, but I thought there was a lot more out there to get. It is what it is. We won the game. We're 10-0. We're undefeated in the conference, and I guess what we did what we had to do to win the game, and that's the thing about this team. Here's the thing too. This thought went through my mind. We do things that good teams do, and that win games. We don't turn the ball over. We don't have stupid penalties. We don't make stupid mistakes, force the ball, do those kinds of things. And Miami is kind of like where we were about 3 years ago. They still do those kinds of things. They do things that cost them ball games. And, hey, you got to give them credit now. That defensively, they're the real deal. I don't think they're as good as Clemson personnel-wise, but they play, and they're very effective with their scheme, with the pressure. But, we do things that good teams do to win ball games, and that's something to not take for granted, right? Because we took it for granted for so long, and then we were doing stupid things that cost you ball games. And I remember being on this thing and saying that, going, if we could just cut out the stupid mistakes, we'd be so much better. And we don't do those things.
Yeah, so 3 penalties for 35 yards, as you said, no turnovers.
No turnovers. I mean, that's what good teams do, and that's what wins ball games.
Won the kicking game, no missed field goals, I don't think, but to their one, or their 2, or 1 missed field goal, and really, the only mistake in the special teams was the onside kick call, which you handed.
It was there.
It was there.
It was there.
But you gave Miami 3
points. If that ball doesn't bop a little too high, they get that. If that ball,
that thing hung up forever, didn't it? Man, that thing hung up forever. And so, I know a lot of people are saying that's a stupid call, but I mean that's Mike, and that's why we like him, right?
No doubt.
He's aggressive.
John Papuchis said yesterday they were always going to do that all week. He said if we won the toss and deferred, we may have done it on the opening kickoff, is what he said.
Yeah, that's why they kept us out of the IPF some last week.
I think you're right. Yeah, there was a chunk of special teams on Wednesday we didn't get to watch.
Yeah.
Well, no harm, no foul, as we've talked about, but it did lead to 3 additional points.
I know, but you know what? That's what makes Mike. And that's what you take that because you get the other, right? It's part of the package, and so I was okay with it. Yeah. When I watched the replay during the game, they showed it on the screen. I'm like, man, it was there. And that ball just hung.
They don't do that blindly. John Papuchis and that whole staff does their work over finding teams that they think they can exploit. The teams that take off before that ball's kicked, just thinking it's going deep, making assumptions, not being smart. They see something. It's not something they just do based on nothing.
I don't think anybody on this thing right here thinks they did it blindly.
No, I'm saying that for the people. I'm saying that for the people because there's some people who may not understand the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, listen, they saw something. Listen, as I told Mark on first impressions, no harm, no foul. They didn't get hurt by it at the end of the game. Yep. On the other hand, if they had driven that last drive, could have just been a field goal. All they needed was a field goal if Miami had scored a touchdown on a short field. So I think those are all fair points. But yes, it certainly, as you and Mark have both said, it was there, but it did not work. And no harm, no foul. We know Mike's aggressive. That was his 4th down call of the game. So, but Bob, what were your top takeaways from the Miami game?
Maybe that was an homage to the Riverboat Gambler, with Bobby Bowden having his birthday a few days before. Maybe there was a little bit of Mike Norvell channeling some Bobby. But, Pat, you like to say it's complementary football. I think we saw enough really big plays from all 3 phases, right? Yep. And I thought on defense, this was kind of their season in a nutshell. This was, hey, you're going to give up the big plays, but you're going to play really good in all the right situations. You're going to get the takeaway at the end of the game. You're going to play really good. I think it was 4 of 16 on 3rd downs. You're going to make enough stops, holding Miami to about a yard per rush outside of those big chunk plays, which most of them came second quarter. I mean, when you look back on them, there was a lot of let's call them run fit adjustments. I think that was the generic term Mike Norvell said on his coach's show Monday night. So, take adjustments for what they're worth, whether they were significant or not. The defense really, except for that, the Kevin Knowles boneheaded play, thought the second half was pretty good overall against a really talented Miami roster. So this is one that I think maybe nationally won't be celebrated. I think obviously within the fan base, you take these kind of big wins against a rival, even though it was maybe tighter than expected in the end.
Yeah, as Fish said on his rewatches, win over Miami is win over Miami, what it looks like. And I think we all agree with him. And listen, the defense gave up over half its yards in the second half, gave up 155, 85 were on that one play. And as you mentioned, Bob, if he takes a better angle to the ball, that plays down to around the 50-yard line and the clock's running.
And then if you take away the missed tackles in the first half, it's even worse, right? I mean, the only time, I know, Jerry, you charted them.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a ton of missed tackles in the first half and for tackling for whatever reason. But you take that away, it's even worse. So defense came to play and did a great job.
Well, the missed tackles were a step in the wrong direction. I think PFF had them at 17, and they had 15 in the last 3 games combined. They'd been tackling at a high level, and this was obviously, I think, whatever the reason was. And I think it was concentrated in the second quarter. This team is real damn resilient. There is something weird about this team that it seems like they respond very well to getting kind of punched in the mouth, if you will. A number of weeks in a row, when teams have thrown that, they've responded exceptionally well. What was it in my column? They're now 100. I think they've outscored opponents 197-69 in the second half. That's they've been outscored twice in the second half all year. One was Boston College, which the further we get from it, the more like an anomaly it looks. The other was Wake Forest, where that game was essentially over at halftime. So, I think, frankly, the story of the game, as it has been a lot, I was very impressed with the defensive adjustments. I thought they made some sound offensive adjustments after how bad the second quarter was. And especially offensively, I didn't really see a ton of Miami adjustments. And maybe you've got to keep it somewhat simple when you're throwing the true freshman out there in that atmosphere. And I was impressed. He never had the fatal mistake. I kept thinking a bad pick was coming. And I guess he got away with a few that were very close to being picked. But Emory Williams never made that mistake. But Florida State, the defense did a very good job containing. And like we said, the offense did enough. It was another game where the team just came together for that one stretch of the game where it was essentially won. And we've talked about, I think it seems like people have been dinging Florida State a little nationally for not covering the spread, for that being a 1-score game, for them needing that stop late. I've talked to multiple people who were there watching that game in person who never really thought Miami was going to win that game. And it speaks to, the fluky play Miami needed to make it a 1-score game. And it's like, as weird as it is to say, I did never feel especially confident about Miami scoring on that last drive. Just, I don't know. There's something about this team in the clutch that I believe in them.
Yeah, and listen, Emory, he didn't make the fatal mistake, but FSU put pressure on him. By the third quarter, that kid was mentally and physically frustrated, and I was shocked that they did not pull him for Van Dyke when it went 27-13 just to get somebody, because there was a play on the band end of the field. It was a third down, and that kid did not want to be back there in the pocket. He did not want to be throwing the ball. They had beat the living tar out of him and frustrated him with all the pressure. I think Florida State had 17 pressures in this ball game, according to PFF, and it was coming from all levels of the defense. But, Jerry, what were your thoughts on the game?
I like the adjustments in the second half, whatever they were. We definitely fixed whatever issues we were having in the run game. Mark, could you tell what they were?
Yeah, they started bringing Shane Brown off the edge a bunch.
Safety
that was
blitzes.
one.
Yep.
And they just started loading the box. They just said, you know what, he's not going to throw it deep, and he did. The 2 long plays he had were short throws and missed tackles. So they just said, we're gonna come at it, and I think the linebackers are a little more downhill, and the way they were fitting was before they would try to play over the top a little bit more, but I think they're a little more downhill, just kind of how they fit it in the second half. And honestly, I think we just won up front more. I think Cohen and Lee, I watched them a bunch, and they were pretty good early, but I think as the game wore on, they got tired, and that was my thought too. Was on their defense, especially after that punt return that Keon had, I said, man, that team's getting tired, you know. And I thought that was going to be a factor going into the game, but then they got that long play and they got juiced up again. Be that as it may, I think that's all it was, Jerry. They really brought a lot more pressure
and contain the edge better.
For sure.
Yeah, because that's where Miami wanted to run it. And Miami didn't have much more success running the ball than Florida State did. Really, they struggled to have any consistency, as you guys said. I believe 9 of the 13 drives they had were of 42 yards or less. I mean, they just could not move the ball in at least several 5-play drives, a 6-play drive, but never able to get anything going. Kurt?
But Mark did bring up a good point. There were quite a few. Malagoa, the linebacker for Miami, had a great game with quite a few shoestring tackles, or Florida State's run game would have had a bit more. They were kind of trusting him to make those plays, and he did, and he bailed them out of allowing a few more explosive runs.
Yeah. I mean, they were outnumbering us in the box totally. I mean, they ran bare all night. You know, if we had 6, they had 7. If we had 7, they had 8. If we had 5, they had 6. I mean, every time they had one more in the box than we did.
Guidry's a good DC.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he rolled the dice. That's why I was saying, man, I was looking at some of these RPOs, especially early, and you know, Jordan's putting that ball in the belly, and he's looking, and I'm like, pull it and throw it, man.
Yeah.
They were 6 to 10 yards off our slot receivers, even our outside guys, and it was there. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't throw more RPOs. The one that number 0, what's his name, Ja'Kai. Kai's one, you know, that RPO, that thing was awesome. There's another one where we hit, I think it was Kyle Morlock on one also. I mean, that was there all night if we wanted it. And for whatever reason, we just didn't do it.
On the one Ja'Kai, man, you got to give an assist to Jordan and to Keon, because he looked over. Keon was lined up at number 1. He gave him just enough of a look. There's almost, I think it was double slants. And sure enough, the inside safety, or the safety to that side, took just long enough look at Keon, and then obviously Jordan hit him, and Ja'Kai was off to the races.
Yeah.
That was a fun play to watch unfold if you studied the tape. But yeah, it was that was a heck of a play. But yeah, listen, Miami's run defense was stout. There's no doubt about that. FSU had no choice, and luckily it had Keon and Johnny, because those guys were the difference makers on offense. FSU averaged under 2 yards a carry with a 38-yard run for a touchdown. So, you know, they struggled. We knew they would. It's what we anticipated coming into this game. And as you guys have said, they found a way to work around that. And we mentioned that last week, that Mike Norvell, since he got here back in 2020 and 2021, when they were undermanned at offensive line, they were able to scheme just enough success in the run game to be successful in some games. And obviously now they've got some more talent on the offensive line and able to do a little bit better than what they were doing those years. But yes, you know.
Hey, when they were in those quads, you know, when they came out of that quad, they did quite a bit of that. And you saw what they're trying to run it out the backside of that. I mean, it was there. I mean, it was there. If we just would execute a little better, you know, block it a little better. I mean, those were big runs just begging to happen. We hit one on a counter. I would have liked them to see them do a speed option back that way. That would have been awesome. But yeah, man, you can see what they're trying to do. And then that orbit motion was something we hadn't done a whole lot of. I mean, that was you know, when they did that throw to Keon on that orbit motion. But they ran a bunch of that. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. You saw what he was trying to do. You saw what he saw, and it was more like we're going to try to hit chunk big plays out of this stuff rather than, you know what, we can get, you know, we can run RPOs, we can run, you know, slants, we can throw, you know, some man beaters that would be really effective. But for whatever reason, we just didn't do a lot of that.
And we didn't throw any interceptions.
And we didn't throw any interceptions.
Was anyone surprised that they did not run Johnny more in a dedicated run game? He had 8 runs for 15 yards, obviously 2 sacks for losses of 30. Was anyone surprised that they did not run Jordan more?
Yeah.
I know. I got Johnny Wilson written down several times.
Pat, I thought a couple of times on RPOs, Mark was talking about Jordan could have pulled it and thrown it. I think he could have pulled it and run it several times.
Yeah, I thought there was a couple looks there, but they did have an extra guy.
Yeah.
You know, that was the only thing that maybe they were a little reticent to do that.
All right, Nick, what did you think? We got to keep you awake too, man. What did you think?
I'll keep it quick. This game went about as well as about as what I thought it was going to be. I felt like Miami was going to be competitive early on. It was probably going to be a closer than a lot of Florida State fans wanted the game to be. But in the end, a couple of things would really allow the Florida State team to be able to pull away. One, the amount of depth that this team has, especially on the defensive line. It was a good shout by Mark, who said that Lee and Cohen were getting tired towards the end of the game, and the ability to bring in fresh legs in pairs of two on the defensive line really helped this Florida State defense kind of shut things down in the second half. And I also think that, we need to give Adam Fuller his flowers for having, again, a great set of adjustments coming out of halftime. Loading the box a little bit more, making sure that the ends weren't going 5 to 7 yards too far up the field, which is what kind of sprung some of those really big runs towards the end of the first half for Miami. Kevin Knowles had a pretty terrible game. He was responsible for a couple of big Jacoby George breakout runs or runs after the catch. But, other than that, Florida State was able to pull away. And realistically, in my mind, I know the score is what the score is, but in my mind, without that fluke play, this is a 14-point game. Florida State covers, and this is a very solid rivalry win. I didn't really think at any point that Florida State was going to lose that game. It felt like they had the maturity and control of the game throughout, even though Miami was extremely competitive. And hey, that is a really talented team. That's a talented team. They have playmakers all over the field. But I think Florida State's maturity, the confidence that they have, and the depth is ultimately what allowed them to pull it out.
Yeah, I think FSU's depth was certainly a strength in this game. Miami had very little at any position. They did not have a really competent passing game. I know Mario Cristobal thought it was going to start to progress with the quarterback change. He had mentioned the digression they had taken over 4 weeks, but and I know he threw an interception at the end of the game, and he had nowhere to go with the ball. I mean, he had to throw it. It was fourth down. But listen, that Alex Van Dyke, the ball comes out of his hand a lot different than it does Emory Williams. And I think Mario made a critical mistake before the game even started with putting Emory Williams at quarterback in this environment.
Well, you saw how much smoother the passing game with Van Dyke was, even though, he rolled out of the pocket and threw a pick to end the game, but he went right back to Restrepo. And the couple of throws that he had in one-on-one coverage against Renardo, and I can't remember who the receiver was on the left-hand side of the field, those were fine throws too. But go ahead, Kurt.
I think TVD would have given them a better chance to win the game. I think TVD also would have given them a better chance to get blown out.
Yeah.
Because you can't ignore the mistake proneness.
Yeah. But you got to go
high risk, high reward. It felt like they were choosing weirdly. They're going to a freshman for stability.
Well, yes, and I would certainly have put him in at 27-13 when Emory Williams was.
I think you're right there.
It was, visibly.
Here's my question.
Yeah,
they looked pretty beat up. I mean, Ken Kitchens was hurt.
Yeah,
guys were beat up pretty good. I'm worried about them playing Louisville next week. I don't know. I mean, they got to be hurting. They got to be hurting. And I think
not only are they hurting, they're probably. Would you expect a little bit of a hangover from this Florida State game?
Absolutely.
Just a little bit. So I think you're spot on there.
Well, listen, I think Louisville needs to be the team FSU plays in the championship game because they're going to be the highest rated ACC team if they win, other than Florida State, not ranked. North Carolina's got 2 tough games. Who knows whether they're going to win both of those? If they don't, they're going to be right on the edge of the top 25. I don't think you want to play somebody in that playoff game. So I hate Miami's beat up. Everybody is this time of year, and I'm sure.
I think I'd rather play Louisville too, honestly.
Yeah, well, I just want
to see Drake May.
Yeah, well, yeah, if he gets hot, you're in trouble, and there's no doubt that the quarterback from Louisville is not the playmaker that Derek May is.
No.
In fact,
and they don't have a Tez Walker. What his name?
They are very run game
oriented.
Yeah. And I think that works to Florida State's advantage too, because obviously they have been very good against the run. Jerry,
I think the big thing you said at the start of this is, if this playoffs selection comes down to a beauty contest, which it can, you want to be able to beat a team that's a top 10 team. You may need a quality win before this thing is over.
Not unless you lose. I don't think. There is no world where a 13-0 Florida State gets left out. I'm not getting. I can't.
It doesn't hurt to have it.
Sure. I don't disagree, but I think if you're 13-0, you're going to be in. If you lose one, you're probably.
I think it's going to be closer than you think if Washington ends up 13-0. I think it's going to be a lot closer for Florida State than.
But so Florida State may fall, maybe 4, maybe Washington jumps them, but Ohio State or Michigan's losing. We know one of the 5 undefeated Power 5 teams is losing. There are going to be 4 at most left.
They're not going to put an undefeated. They're not going to leave out an undefeated conference champion for a one-loss non-conference champion. There's no way.
We keep saying that until they do it.
Yeah. Well, there's a first time for everything.
Yep.
Well, and let me pose this: what if if Alabama beats Georgia?
Yeah,
Georgia's getting left out.
Yeah, man,
Georgia's getting left out.
National champion.
Can't do it.
Mark, you've even got Alabama in your top 4 today.
I do.
I think they might be one of the 4 best teams right now.
And listen, that is what the College Football Committee playoff is charged with, getting the 4 best teams of the playoff. Now, I have a hard time seeing it. I'm not disagreeing totally. I'm just saying that stranger things have happened. And
if they set that, I guess it doesn't matter next year.
Yes,
12.
this is the year.
Precedent don't matter.
We're going to be doing 3-hour shows next year.
Yes, this is going to be the.
I would want to see that Mike Norvell press conference. Like Mike Norvell is not one for scorched earth. Good Lord, would we see scorched earth Mike Norvell?
All right, so you brought it up, so let's talk about it. You went straight to Mike Norvell's press conference, and obviously it was he was in a good mood. I did notice that on what little of it that I was able to catch. He seemed to be more chipper than other press conferences. But one of FSU's former coaches was let go at his job at Texas A&M, and as FSU fans are going to have to get used to every time a big name program comes open. As long as Mike Norvell is here and winning at a high level, his name's going to come up. He said most of the right things, guys. This is a special place. He's happy with what they are doing at Florida State and what they're building. And, he's flipped the program where people are talking about him losing his job to whether they're leaving for a new job. You guys were there. You got to read body language. You got to hear tone. It sounded like I'm not considering any other jobs, but it was not a Dan Lanning, hell no, there's no way I'm going to leave Oregon statement. So just y'all's thoughts on, I've already said in Takeaway Tuesday, I do not think Mike is going anywhere. I gave my reasons for that, including the timing of when this job will be closed in relation to FSU and Mike Norvell chasing a national championship. But Bob and Kurt, you guys were there. Y'all start.
So I agree with you. It was not the hell no of Dan Lanning, right? But I think we talked about this throughout the weekend that the calendar now really, really is challenging for college coaches in December. You've got the conference championship games. Yes, there is a bit of a recruiting dead period, but that portal window opens up in a heartbeat on Sunday, December 3rd. Then you get right into it for 30 days. You are, Pat, as you said, you are re-recruiting your own roster, whether you're staying at Florida State or whether another coach is leaving for another job, right? And you've got the early signing window too. In addition to, why don't you coach a football team in a bowl game of sorts? The December calendar is a mess. And I think this is why Texas A&M made this decision so early. Get out in front of it. You've really got a short list of guys. You jump on those guys. But Mike Norvell in a 10-0 season with everything that he's built, with a top 5 signing class that who knows could get better, it ain't going to happen. And I do think you're right, though. He's going to get a nice raise because this is the way the college football world works.
He was already set to make
smartest man in the face of college football. Go ahead, Kurt.
He was already set to make 8.65 million next year. He's getting a raise from like 6 something to 8 million something.
Plus bonuses.
I think it's going to be even more than that. Let's be real. I think it's going to be more than that after this year. However it ends, you have to imagine that'll be the case. Why would he leave now when he kind of just got things rolling and, like you said, has that class come? It just doesn't make it beyond the timeline of it all. And my thing with the whole, there's no right thing a coach can say, because like the example I'll always use is Nick Saban sitting there and saying, I'm not going to be the next head coach. Sorry, Dolphins fans, but saying I'm not going to be the next head coach of Alabama. And then he became there's just, you can outright say, coaches can lie. People can lie. Like, I just don't read anything into entirely saying just because they said that means their word is their bond. They're going to be out for their best interest.
Well, look, here's the other thing too. By the way, Buddha in the house, Greg Leonard, my buddy. Look, here's the deal. And knowing what we know about Mike and knowing how he's embraced this program and its history and its culture, I mean, more so than Jimbo ever did or even Willie ever did. You know, I mean, the way he treats us as ex-players, you know, the thing we do on Friday nights with, you know, how he connects us with the current team, the way he's kind of embraced the whole thing, I would be shocked if all that was just a show. Because I think he believes it and feels it deep down in his soul. You know, I really do. I mean, he's got me sold, and I would be shocked if he's that mercenary type. There would have to be something on our end that would drive him away. I don't think he would be lured away, you know, from us for money. I don't believe that, because if that's who he is, I would be shocked.
Well, I don't think it would be personal money. I think the two big issues with coaches today is, one, are we trapped in the ACC? And are you going to be competing at a $30 million a year deficit right off the bat? And then secondly, your NIL, your ability to generate NIL money. Battle's End's done a good job. Is it sustainable? Right? And if you can't answer both those questions, check those boxes, then you're tempted. Everything about
that's my point. That's my point. It would have to be something on our end that would drive him away, or make him believe that he can't fulfill his vision for the program. But I don't, and I think it's too early to tell. You know, this year would not be the year.
Yeah, well, listen, I think the timing of even so the A&M kids are in the portal. They can enter the portal now, right? They've got 30 days.
Yes.
So they've got a full month. So I think that helps. I don't understand. Ross Bork was going to. His timeline was going to not be great either way, right? If we waited to the end of the season, unless it was already worked out to where he had his guy signed, sealed, and delivered the day after all the legalese was taken care of with Jimbo. But listen, I don't see him leaving, but I think Jerry's point is valid. You got an AD that is trying to leave for more money in a different conference because he talks about wants to be able to compete with the SEC and Big Ten teams. Maybe. I'm using other Mike as an example. It could be other coaches in ACC. Maybe they want access to, as Jerry said, those resources. And as Jerry said, maybe the timeline works out better. So listen, there are words do matter. We all can be more careful with how we phrase things, but I do think that Mike could have been a little bit more definitive in how he answered that question. I think that he could have came out and said, I'm very happy at FSU. They pay me handsomely. I'm building this thing, and I want to be the next Bobby Bowden. None of those things got said. So I think he left. I think Dan Lanning spoke in black and white terms, and I think Mike spoke in gray terms. And, I think that as I said, I don't think he's going, but I think he would listen if they wanted to talk.
Mike Norvell is a Sexton client. I mean, he's gonna operate that way, and he's. I mean, that's unfortunately how the world works. But my point was more, even if he said that
we just saw another coach not work that way. So it's not how it works for everybody.
You're right, but
to Kurt's point, Saban said he wasn't going. I agree with Kurt. I mean,
he could say,
doesn't matter.
I'm not going anywhere, and he could still go.
I wouldn't
until
believe
the job is filled. It's not a done deal.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe either one of them.
Exactly. And also, I don't know if Lanning is a Sexton client. Lanning might not have that type of agent who wants people to operate that way. I don't know.
If I know, I mean, I don't know Norvell any better than any of us do.
Yeah.
We've only been around him 4 years, so it's not like a lifetime. But if I read him right, he has told Jimmy Sexton, you handle everything. I don't want to be distracted. I got to focus on winning football.
Agreed.
And the agent handles all of those transactions. I can tell you, that head coach doesn't get brought into the discussion until pretty late. So, a coach can look you straight in the face and tell you, I have no interest in that job. But after the Florida game, or whenever the deadline is, based upon the timing on this, when that agent sits down and puts the package in front of them, it can change your mind.
Yeah, I think the timing helps Florida State tremendously with what kind of season they are having. I think that's one of the things that Florida State. And listen, as somebody said earlier, Mike seems to be very happy in Tallahassee. He's integrated into the community well. He's involved in all things FSU related. He has really aligned himself with the other sports programs and academics, and he spends a lot of time speaking to students and classes. And you see him out in the community from time to time. I don't know how much time he gets to go out in public and not be just covered up with autograph seekers and things of that nature. But Jared, you mentioned how he blended into the at the fundraiser out in the crowd, so he does seem like he enjoys being here. And I think he's going to be here, but I do think that it's a valid discussion point. And,
hey Pat, Amethyst is asking, what station is it on? Is it
ESPN, and it's running behind. There's 1 minute and 21 seconds, at least on my television, in the Duke-Michigan State game, and they are going to go straight to the I think they've got a 30-minute window between games, so I think they're being played at the same facility tonight for basketball, so they'll have a quick 30-minute show here, hopefully in the next couple of minutes. Not to be. And listen, when Arkansas comes open, his name's going to be mentioned with Arkansas because he played at Arkansas. And this is going to go on forever. And listen, it's why we love college football, right? I mean, we're talking about it. It's we all hear things differently, see things differently, and I'm sure that everybody that heard what Mike said has their own little variation on it. But yes, it's about to get crazy because obviously. That job's got the potential to cause some major ripple effects across the college football landscape. And we haven't even gotten into a scenario where maybe a Lincoln Riley goes to a San Diego Chargers and all those things. So listen, silly season is here because we are sitting here parsing the words of one Mike Norvell. So, but all right, so
I could change the subject for a minute.
That's what I was going to do.
Okay, but I'd be remiss if I didn't. Mark, you've talked a little bit about the offensive line and that Miami was going to put one more in the box than we had to protect, whether that be against the run or the pass.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of tackles for loss. They had 3 sacks, which is their average is 3.3. Their tackles for loss, they're ranked really high in tackles for loss. As you look at that game on second watch, what do you think Florida State could have done better? Or do you have any reason to believe that Florida will try to do a similar scheme against this offensive line?
Well, number one, I don't think Florida's defense is near as good as Miami's. Jake Daniels kind of proved that. Like I said before, I thought there were opportunities on the outside that we didn't necessarily take advantage of as much as I thought we could. You can pop some runs in those fronts, and we did scheme some formations and stuff that gave some really good looks, and for whatever reason, just didn't pull it off. I mean, like I said, shoestring tackles, and one guy slipped off here and there, and that was it. I mean, look, and here's the other thing: our OL is beat up. I saw Maurice Smith go in at halftime. I saw, Bless Harris barely played. If he did play, Rob Scott, I hadn't seen Rob Scott in about 2 weeks. I mean, those guys are beat up pretty good. So, you got to kind of take that into account a little bit too. So, it is what it is. We weren't just a mauling offensive line anyways, but we were pretty good in pass protection, and they got that last sack up the middle. That was a miscommunication. You want to take care of the inside first, and there's several ways you can do it. And I try to parse out how they would have done it if they would have had the right call on. Be that as it may, bottom line is they brought 6, I guess, and we were blocking 5. Maybe they brought 7, we were blocking 6. I'm not sure. Bottom line is they had more than we can block, and so the way you handle that is you either free release the back, which that was that first play to Benson on the outside, right? Free release the back. And, all of a sudden the guy that's blitzing is the guy that was supposed to have him. And, there's little things you can do to break open some wide open plays and get them out of that. And that's the thing you like to do. The other thing you can do is go ahead and max protect, and you still got one-on-one on the outside, which we have a distinct advantage, and we didn't do that at all that I saw. I didn't see us max protect at all that I can remember. But, that's one way to handle it. That's one way, what we used to do is, we're going to go ahead and block 7 guys and go 1 or 8 guys and block one-on-one and have one-on-one on the outside, and we're going to win,
That's what I thought. I thought I saw a couple of times we had 2 H-backs and one running back, and basically man coverage with the wideouts.
Yeah.
I think I only saw that once or twice in the game.
Yeah. So, but I would think if it came down to it, and we were, I know we were behind briefly, but I would think that they would take more chance. I think that's the thing. On some level, you're taking a little bit of a chance, and throwing some low percentage stuff possibly. Here's the other thing: Keon and Johnny, as good as they are and as big as they are not burners. And they're not wiggly guys, right? So they do get a little sticky on the man coverage, right? And that's why somebody like a Jeremiah Smith or somebody like that would be awesome. You get a burner that can just scorch man coverage with speed. We don't have that guy necessarily, and that's something that we need for sure. That's
all right. Well, as we get ready to go to, there's about 17 seconds. Speaking of Jeremiah Smith, it was a big recruiting weekend. Certainly winning has its privileges, and obviously Jeremiah Smith was here. Kai Bates was here, who had been committed to LSU. You had Wardell Mack here, who was committed to LSU, then flipped to Texas, so it looks like they won't get Wardell. But you had LJ, you had Jeremiah Smith here, you had Kai Bates here. There's all kind of rumblings about what's going on with Jeremiah Smith in South Florida. Obviously, it sounds very positive for Florida State. We are trying to get more information on that, but the last information I heard was he was not going to make a decision until he took an official visit. That goes contrary to what I heard last night. So we'll see. Somewhere in the middle is probably the truth, but we'll be ready for it when it gets there. But Nick, you spent most of the time with recruits, and you talked to Jeremiah, I believe. So just tell us a little bit about what the recruiting weekend was like for Florida State.
I mean, it was, look, anytime you can get 100+ recruits, a good chunk of them committed to other programs, you get them to a rivalry game in which Florida State results in a win, and you also get the element of the daylight savings time night game where they do have that kind of night game element. You get the flashing lights. You get
Did you bring some lights home with you from?
Yeah, I did. No, I had these actually. Doak pawned them off of me. No, but anytime you can get that and you can get the full experience, those recruits got the best of both worlds when it came to Doak on Saturday. And when you talk to recruits, sometimes you ask similar questions and sometimes you don't have to. And the constant thing that I was told or that they said to me was, man, that atmosphere was something else. And Mark, you've played in these games. You were there on Saturday and you said that atmosphere was special. A lot of these kids were seeing that or hearing that atmosphere for the first time. So a lot of good feedback on the atmosphere. Talking to Jeremiah, you have got to feel good about where Florida State is right now. He was very complimentary. Getting him to have his last visit, and this is his last visit, period, be an official visit to Florida State the last week before he signs his name, whether that be to Ohio State or Florida State or Miami or wherever he's going to end up going. That really bodes well for Florida State. Kai Bates decommitting certainly bodes well. Unfortunately, he was one of the ones that slipped past us outside that night. But you have other guys coming into the fray that are also committed to other programs, like Cam Coleman from Texas A&M and Xavier Lucas, who's committed to Wisconsin. So, getting a lot of these guys on campus for that game, it could have major implications, as, we figured that Florida State was going to be somewhat selective down the stretch here since they already had so many commits. And it looks like they're still going full steam ahead, and they're going after some really big fish.
Well, they are for sure. And right now they are hotter than I ever thought they'd be. I mean, they are burning up. I mean, I get text. I just got a text earlier today about another kid committed to Miami that looks like he may be having second thoughts and looking towards north towards Tallahassee. But Mark, got a question for you. Mike Norvell puts in a lot of time. He put a lot of time in this Sunday, and now some of it may be because they got North Alabama. I don't think it would have mattered who they were playing. But he puts a lot of time into recruiting on a Sunday during the season. Just talk about, did you ever work for a head coach that spent that much time with recruiting on a game week Sunday, particularly when it came to unofficial visits? And what are your thoughts on
when I coached, we didn't have the recruiting staff that you have now, so you had to do everything as a coach. And you were with me. I mean, we would we'd break down film. We'd grade the film on Sunday. We'd start the game plan process, and guys would get up and go make phone calls for 30 minutes and remember that? Yeah, just sit in your office and start calling guys and talking to guys, and guys that were in town. You host. I mean, you do. Wiseman once told me recruiting's like shaving. If you don't do it every day, you start getting a little scraggly, right?
I heard Jim Levitt say that 1,000 times at USF.
1,000, yeah. He's not the only
one.
Hey,
I remember sitting on that fax machine every Friday morning, starting at 6 o'clock during football season, and faxing all y'all's personal good luck notes. So that was the modern version of wishing them well on Twitter. I would literally sit in a fax machine for 8 hours, faxing every kid in the state of North Carolina that they were recruiting, good luck notes that Mark and the other coaches had written. But that's listen, they are on fire. Nick is on top of it. I am working with Nick to keep us up to date. We've gotten a lot of information over the last couple of days that we are trying to make sure that it's ready to report, but we're hearing 4 or 5 names that could pop up pretty quick. And as Nick said, looks like Jeremiah Smith's going to be here in mid to late December. And my understanding is, as of tonight, that's when he would announce a change if he chose to decommit to Ohio State. But it's certainly looking good for Florida State right now. With Kai Bates, it seems they're looking pretty good, and several others. I got to give our props to Alex Mastromanno. We didn't talk enough about him tonight, but he is a Ray Guy finalist. Apparently, all my social media and Takeaway Tuesday efforts for Alex are really starting to pay off. You're welcome, Alex. And then we've got just want to go around the horn on this one. FSU's offensive line is a Joe Moore Award finalist. Mark, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to say I haven't studied any other offensive line, and if that's the best offensive line in the country, I would be I would be shocked. Yeah. But look, they've been effective. They've been effective. They can pass pro.
They can do that.
They can pass pro well. I don't know what the charge is for the Joe Moore committee. Is it the best line on the best team? Is it, I don't know what their deal is, but
well, let me ask, how many teams did they name?
12.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I guess, all right.
Well, and there's definitely, when you start breaking down the numbers, what's that?
Talk about how far the reputation. This feels like more reputation than what they've actually done. Kind of what they thought they were going to be coming into the year. Talk about, how far this room's come in 3 or 4 years, that this wasn't they were in this conversation probably coming into the year, which helped them, I imagine, be a semifinalist.
Oh yeah, we thought they were going to be the Great Wall of Dallas. I mean, the offensive line that blocked for Emmitt Smith. And listen, I do think I did think this quote, winners write history, right? And FSU's winning at a alarming rate, 20 of the last 23 games, and I think that buys all the players on that team some credibility, right? So now they are one of the better teams within the third in runs per yards per carry. I believe they're 36th. Obviously, very good in pass protection, as we've talked about. But yeah, so I would listen. Happy for them. Was a little bit surprised would be my only comment.
I mean, look, they're not dominating maulers. That's not what they are, right? But let's just go back 3 years.
Hey, they might be next year with Jalen Early and Chris Otto.
See who they bring back. I mean, that's a fascinating conversation.
But just go back 3 years where we were, right? And would any of us have said 3 years ago that, hey, this is going to be a Joe Moore finalist, offensive line, one of the best in the country? And look, you don't win however many games in a row we've won if you're not strong on the line of scrimmage, either side, right? And that's just the fundamental of football. So you got to give them credit.
I think the caveat too is, you brought it up a little bit ago, Mark. We don't know the extent, but we think they're pretty banged up right now. If they win the next 3, and if they get 3 weeks to rest up a bit or recover or do a little rehab and only have to practice without a game, I'm curious what they could look like in a playoff game. And obviously, to be playing a elite defensive line, where that is going to probably be, the best defensive line they played all year, it'll be a big challenge for them. But I do wonder, if you give them a couple of weeks, how much that might be able to help them a bit.
Unless it's Washington.
That's true.
Well, that would be an interesting matchup. Hey, North Carolina is the lowest ranked ACC team at 20th.
LSU's up to 15.
Yeah, that helps Florida State tremendously.
Louisville's going to be in the top 10, as we thought.
Yep.
LSU 15, that helps.
Yeah, it does. They need to keep on going. I don't know who they got this week, but
they got A&M next week, right? I think this might be. Oh, they have Georgia State this week. My brother's going. My brother covers Georgia State. I've been said I'm very upset with him that he gets to cover a game in Death Valley, and I get to cover the game in New Orleans. Yeah, the actual stadium.
Well, you got to cover a game at Pitt.
I did. No, and I enjoyed that. But I covered the LSU game.
I know.
In New, and don't get me wrong, loved New Orleans, but we all wanted that Death Valley, that Baton Rouge game.
It is pretty cool.
So Oregon State's 11. That means
Louisville is 10.
And Oregon State plays Washington this week, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yep.
We need an upset there.
Oregon State plays the next 2 weeks, Washington and Oregon. They'll have a chance to really sow some chaos.
Actually,
Missouri at 9. They've had a hell of a year.
They have.
And they get the Gators.
They probably deserve
this week.
that jump up. Yep. That's
a
tough few weeks for the Gators.
They moved up 5 spots. Wow, that's a lot.
They whooped up on Tennessee.
They did. Josh Heupel's they're getting after Josh on social media.
SEC, baby, you don't get long.
No, you do not. You do not.
So it's amazing the difference a quarterback makes, right?
Yeah. Hey, speaking of quarterbacks, Miami former quarterback, the Bills found their fall guy this morning. They fired Ken Dorsey.
My gosh. Yep.
It was the special teams coordinator who put 12 men on the field at the end of the game that cost them the game. They missed the field goal, which Alabama moved up or no, stayed pat.
No, stay. Yeah, I think the 6, 7, 8 are going to stay exactly the same. I bet it's going to be Oregon, Texas, Bama.
Dang, that's all right. We're getting.
This show has been anticlimactic for the 3 weeks.
It's the same 4 teams every week. Although I think Georgia was Ohio State number 1 last week.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Georgia.
If Georgia is not number 1 this week, I wanted to throw something last week, but if I might sign off. I won't do that. But
with what they did to a top 10 team, even if I don't think Ole Miss is one of the 10 best teams in the country, they were in the top 10. So and with what Georgia dismantled them like that's your number 1 team.
But Kurt, did you not see what Ohio State did to Michigan State? What?
Well, listen, and Georgia has
this.
Brock Bowers back too. So if they
And
do it,
let me tell you something.
Star, if they factor that into it. All right, here we go. It's the top 6.
I'm a little worried.
Yeah,
For what?
It doesn't mean anything. Is what I will say. Tonight doesn't mean anything.
It does.
Just
This doesn't
win.
mean a thing
Hey,
until
by the
December
way-
4th or
hey,
December
by the-
3rd.
Can somebody answer this question for me? There may be a legitimate reason for it. I don't know. But why, once the college football playoff committee poll comes out, do we still have an AP and a coaches poll that don't mean anything?
Because people make commitments to do those the whole year. Yeah, it's tradition.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's it.
Some
There's
people
no
like
other.
brownie points.
So technically, isn't like the AP number 1 the national champion? And like, because the AP does a preseason poll or a postseason poll. I don't think the college football playoff does a postseason poll. I think.
But the national champions crowned by.
Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah,
ERP is going to
weird.
be who
Anyway,
on the plot.
I just didn't know if
AP
maybe
number
all
one.
the other bowls were tied into AP poll rankings. I guess might have been a better question. I didn't know. Maybe outside the top 4, they don't pay attention to the college football rankings, and it's straight off AP. All right, here we go, boys.
Oregon 6.
Uh-oh, Jerry, don't get too nervous on this.
This don't mean a thing, Jerry.
That's right.
I'm on Jerry's side though. This one after what they did to Utah.
Nope.
Oh, there's step number 4.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're really holding Washington's defense against it. Because now I think they got 3 wins over top 25 teams, and at least one more to go.
Something like that.
Did anybody watch Michigan? Anybody watch Michigan Penn State? Anybody watch that game?
I watched some of it before having to head into the stadium.
Florida State stays at 4.
Yep.
Now the only
Michigan-
question now is
The crowd goes mild.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Thank goodness anticlimactic again.
I do wonder, with Florida State playing North Alabama, if Washington beats a top 11 team this week in Oregon State next week.
Kick that
Washington
rock
might-
down the road. Kick that rock down the road.
They might. But again, Washington's got a tougher schedule left because they've also got Oregon in the
Don't
conference
you
championship.
ever underestimate a group of gentlemen from Northern Alabama.
Yep. Who
There's
coming off a bye week?
There's a track record. They do some funky things on offense. We're going to see some Henry, and they'll have.
geez.
Oh yeah, they
Michigan's
do.
3. Let's see if they flip the top 2.
They do some funky things on offense. I've gotten into it a little bit more than I told you guys I was.
Yeah,
Can't help yourself. You're a
at the risk of being mocked, I took a hard look at their roster. They got 12 kids from Florida, 2 from Tallahassee,
really?
8 from Georgia, and 67 from Alabama.
Yep. I bet they got a lot of kids that didn't quite make it at Alabama, Auburn, and
Well, they got a
like
bunch
that.
of transfers from places like that.
Yeah, Ohio
Georgia.
State. All right,
Georgia.
Georgia. So finally, the college football committee has gotten wise and ranked the top team in the nation number 1. They now have a little bit more validation. Or
I wonder how many hours of debate that took.
I bet it's pretty much sit in the room, drink some coffee.
You at the National Hurricane Center, Mark? What is that?
What's Mark got going on?
He's got a subtitle that says National Hurricane Center. I don't wonder if there is
That
there
was-
an inside joke there.
That was my title for last week's
Last week's okay.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Hurricane expert.
stories of Bob.
Yeah.
I thankfully only prepped it thinking they were going to stay at number 4. I bet on that, and I bet
Mark
correctly.
Cantori.
all right. Does anybody have any issue with where Florida State is ranked?
Nope.
No,
I mean,
I'm happy.
I said it last week. Florida State's going to remain at number 4 until Michigan, Ohio State play each other.
I know Mark had them ranked 2. Jerry, you had them ranked 3.
No, I had them 4.
You had them 4. That's right. You and I had them 4. Nick, you had them 4.
Yes.
Okay. Mark, you had them.
I had 2. I think we beat Ohio State or Michigan.
Where would you, Bob and Kurt,
Wow.
where would y'all have had Florida State ranked? Just to bring some symmetry to the proceedings.
I would only go 3 because I wouldn't mind seeing Florida State play Ohio State. I think that's we've discussed this. I think that's a winnable matchup for the Seminoles.
And where would
I
the
think-
game be played?
That game would probably be so Georgia would be number 1 in that case.
So
That
they
means
go to
Georgia would get the
Sugar
Sugar
Bowl.
Bowl, and
Yeah,
we get Rose.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful
Sorry,
in
Jerry.
Southern California
Sorry, Jerry.
this time of year.
Other reasons for us to hope
Apologize
for
in
that game.
advance.
I mean, offense in the Big Ten is inside drill. That's all it is. It's 7-on-7 inside drill.
Well,
And
you see,
I think we beat both those teams.
So Ohio State, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better receiver than Keon Coleman. I don't think the rest of the offense is as good as what Florida State's trotting out there.
I don't think
Did
so
you
either.
see? Do y'all see this week? It's gotten to the point where Brian Hartline liked a tweet on Twitter that was like negging Keon Coleman.
Yes, I saw that.
What are we
Yes,
doing?
I did.
Coach? What are we doing? You're in the playoff race. Why are you worried about that?
What happened?
Brian
Brian
Hartline's
Hartline-
burner account on Twitter got
No,
exposed.
his
or
real
something.
account.
Oh, his real account? Well,
Was
listen,
liking
man.
tweets like that were like Keon Coleman only had 4 catches for 24 yards against Miami.
But he also had a touchdown catch that won the ball game
And a punt return.
that set up. So yeah,
Yeah.
listen, you can make like I said, you can make stats look like anything you want to look. What when he caught the ball, it mattered, right? When the ball was in his hands, it mattered. Listen, I said earlier, I don't think they win the ball game if Keon doesn't play. So he was that important, I think, regardless of how many balls he caught.
100%.
Whatever, to answer your question, I don't think I ever said the truth of the matter is whatever I think so. If all the Power 5 teams win out, I think Florida State ends up being 4. I think if Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Washington all win out, Florida State's going to stick at 4. Washington will eventually, at some point, jump them. I think if Georgia loses, I think, or Washington loses, I think Florida State goes up to 3 or 2. I think it comes down to how many unbeaten Power 5 teams are left. Because I just don't see them ranking a 1-loss Power 5 team above an undefeated team. We talked about it. I can't see it.
What's SOR?
Strength
Strength
of
of
record.
Basically, it's what percent would an average top 25 team of achieving your record against the teams you've played?
Gotcha.
It gets
Whereas-
very complicated, and math makes my head hurt. And
Yeah, I just go by what I see.
Where is Florida State?
Like you said, the stats can make you tell any story you want to tell. You can use any stats you want to tell.
Oh, I was having a discussion last week before this game, and some kind of metric I'd never heard of got thrown in my face. I was like, what the havoc rate?
Yeah,
something like that. I mean, they were predicting that because Florida State's havoc rate was so high, they were just going to kill Miami. I don't know who told me that, but I've never heard that stat before. I didn't know there was such a thing, and I'm glad it worked out for whoever told me that, because Florida State did win, and they created a lot of havoc. I just did not know there was a metric for that.
You know what's crazy that I don't think I realized until I looked today? So the athletic track stop rate, which is basically, I think it's like the amount of defensive drives that are that make the offense ineffective, and it's like points per drive you give up, basically. Florida State's like 8th in stop rate. Georgia's like 12th.
Yeah, I used that stat a couple of times, Kurt, this year. And we were.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good stat. I think
we were 3rd or 4th in that category earlier this year. We've fallen a little bit, apparently.
But I got to think, because of that rate, there's a rate there's a metric for the teams that you accumulated your stop rate. I mean, where does it end? I mean, the stop rate is one thing, but who did you stop?
Yeah, because Michigan's stop rate, Michigan's number 1, and they're allowing 1.71 points per drive.
And they're not stopping anybody.
And they played one team, worth a heck.
Yeah. So this whole thing is, listen, it gives us something to talk about and try to
Michigan. Actually, when you look at Michigan, they've had a bunch of games this year where they've only been scored on once.
Well, do you see the crazy stat last week in the Penn State game when Penn State had 1st and goal? I think in the 1st or 2nd quarter, it was the first time any team has had 1st and goal against Michigan this year.
By the way,
inside the 10-yard line,
and that pathetic offense got 1st and goal on them.
Speaking of Michigan, do yourselves a favor and watch the Jim Harbaugh Monday press conference. It is a thing of beauty. Apparently,
America's team, baby.
His body is the thing that viruses hit and he shatters. It's then he talks about feeding his chickens and how chickens have been. He bought some chicks during COVID for his kids. They don't take care of them, so he's got to clean them, feed them, all that. But how they're good for his mental health. It's a fascinating 41 minutes.
We found somebody with a worse health routine than Aaron Rodgers.
His long-standing thing with chickens is he doesn't want his quarterbacks to eat them because doesn't he say they're nervous birds?
Yes,
he's an odd.
He says he's come full circle on that since he actually has owned chickens, and he's very much pro chicken now. So anyway, do that. That's a fascinating 41 minutes, and one of my favorite things to do is to listen to these guys talk and see who can say the most without saying anything. It's like I want to do coaches that don't say shit for 41 minutes. Who's the king? But anyway, he was awesome. It's well worth your time. Watch it as you're going to sleep. He actually, now listen, he's he will sit there and think about his answer for like 10 or 15 seconds before he gives it. And most of his answers when he answers a serious question are pretty good. But anyway, yeah, fascinating time with Jim Harbaugh. Speaking of Michigan, he's the only one I got to last night. I'll have to get through more tonight.
Put Cristobal and Harbaugh in a debate.
Oh, Harbaugh would destroy him. He would destroy him. He would destroy him. I think that would be where Mario took a knee and said no mas.
Look at that. We have the second highest chance of reaching the CFP.
That makes sense given what you have left.
And when you couple that with our stop rate and havoc rate, we're pretty much guaranteed a spot.
Spin rate, turn rate.
That's right. And our light show.
Yeah.
Right.
We got the best light show.
And if you add the recruiting hotness metric, there's almost no way we can lose.
Atmosphere rate.
That's right.
All right. This has gotten too silly for me, guys.
All right. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you joining us. If you're not an Osceola subscriber, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. Greg Leonard said we have the Ken's Tavern rate. He's right. That used to be a metric back in the day. I'm not sure it is anymore, but it certainly used to be because half the football team was at Ken's on Thursday night before a home game. And
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Well, I can
concur.
Yeah, that's right. But check us out. We've got our Tuesday practice reports. We've got a story on Alvin Henderson, the 2025 running back who was on an unofficial visit this weekend, one of the top running backs in the nation. We're going to have more recruiting news come out, features on Jadon Blair, Jeremiah Smith, Armando Blunt. I think we might have Armando up. I'm not sure.
Not yet, but coming.
We will before. And so Nick will have his recruiting roundup. Bob and Kurt will have weekly or daily features, player feature interviews, Norvell, the rest of the staff. So please check us out at theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. And if you're not an Osceola YouTube channel subscriber, please hit subscribe and don't forget to hit the alert button so you get an alert when we're having anything live. But thanks, Kurt, Bob, Mark, Nick, Jerry, appreciate it. We know we gave a lot for people to think about, but it was a fun show, and we got one more to go next week. No, we got two more, right? Yeah, we got two more. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Go Noles, scalp them.